Assalamualaikum and good greetings. So today I'll be watching a video by, what is this? Daily Dose of Football, titled The Downfall of Robinho from Galactico to Inmate. I'm assuming that means he went to prison. So this would be the downfall. I still remember when he came to Manchester City back then, and with all the hype, and then I'm not sure what happened to him. So I think we will going to be finding that out. So without further ado, let's watch.
Robinho was born in the wrong side of the city of São Paulo. Life was hard. His mom was a housekeeper, his dad was a security guard, and they always managed to get around. Even though from an early age, Robinho had to work to help the family. For a long time, he spent his days in a parking lot, helping people park their cars in exchange for some change. From the time he was 6 years old, he began playing futsal, a popular form of football in Brazil that's played indoor with only 5 players in each team, and he completely excelled, getting scouted into a better team where he would score 73 goals in one season, which would eventually see him get scouted by Santos at the age of 12. They would be so impressed with his futsal skills that they would decide to let him have a go at regular football, and well, once his feet touched that green turf, it was instantly decided that he would never go back to futsal again. Robinho rose through the ranks under the watchful eye of the king himself, Pelé, who at the time was overseeing the club's academy. Pelé immediately had a liking for Robinho. Once he even recalled the first time he watched Robinho play as a 12-year-old by saying, "The first time he touched the ball right in front of my eyes, I got goosebumps. I almost cried. His dribbling was devastating, so was the simplicity with which he controlled the ball. It reminded me of myself when I was his age." Already holding the blessing of the king of Brazilian football himself, it was only a matter of time. As the clock ticked for the first time after his 18th birthday, Santos had already made sure he had the contract in hand. You see, it had been decades since Santos had been successful in the Brazilian Championship. After so much time, they were still stuck in the past, reminiscing about the times when Pelé made them a team the whole world feared. The club's finances became worse and worse until it reached a point where they were unable to even pay their players. The club went into a meltdown, losing players and staff left and right. There was only one solution: the academy. So the youngsters were called up to the main team, with players like Robinho and Diego being introduced to Brazilian football for the first time. The team began being mocked all over the country. They saw them as nothing more than just a bunch of kids with no chance of playing at the highest level and bound to be relegated. The nickname Meninos da Vila, the village boys in English, got a whole new meaning. They were seen as such a weak side that most coaches refused the opportunity to take over the squad, which would lead Emerson Leão, who had just been sacked from coaching the Brazilian national team, to take over. There was an entire country to be proven wrong, and they got to work immediately trying to do so. After 14 games with only 1 goal for Robinho, there was some worry, but then came what the whole country would come to know as O Rei da Pelada, a name given to him for his characteristic dribbles who seemed as dizzying as they were frenetic. Over the next 11 matches, he would score 6 goals, helping Santos qualify to the final stage of the Brazilian Championship. Once there, he stepped it up even further, scoring in both the quarterfinals against São Paulo and in the semifinals against Grêmio. Once they played the away game in the final against Corinthians, there was some worry that the first leg win could be overturned, but then, early into the match, Robinho would win a penalty and then be given the task of, at just 18 years old, being the one to score the goal that would seal the title. And of course, he scored, being handed the award of best forward in the country. His second season was very transitional, especially with the Brazilian League now finally letting go of the playoff format. Santos would only finish second this time around, but in the Copa Libertadores they would go all the way to the final, where they would be defeated by Boca Juniors, who at the time also had a young name in there whose name might be familiar to you: Carlitos Tevez. Though Robinho's tally of 4 goals in 14 matches in the Copa Libertadores might not seem the most impressive, that year his performances had surely impressed many, being one of the standout players in the tournament. 2004 would come and show us a whole new version of Robinho, now seeming much more deadly in front of goal, eventually even going on a streak that saw him score an impressive 11 goals in 10 matches. Robinho was easily the team's star player as they went into the round number 39, tied in points for first place with only 7 matches to go. But then, something tragic happened. As you might imagine, word had gotten around of the kind of money the 19-year-old was making, and so, one day, gunmen bursted into his mother's house in the middle of a family dinner, stuffing her in the trunk of their car and driving away. Robinho was in tears, telling the press that he only cared about getting his mom back home safely. There wasn't time for anything else, and so Santos excused him from playing until 6 matches after. Robinho caved into the kidnappers' demands and paid off the 80,000 euros they had demanded, and thankfully, soon after, his mom was delivered back home in one piece. Right in time for Robinho to join the squad who needed a win against Vasco da Gama to seal the title, which of course they did, and Robinho was named the best player in the country. At this point in time, the winter market was open and Robinho was wanted by a bunch of big European clubs. It was quite simply one of the hottest youngsters money could buy. Except, It couldn't. No matter the amount, Santos would refuse every offer. They were determined to keep their new star boy in the squad. He kept playing, and his supply of goals seemed at times more fruitful than ever, starting the season with 13 goals in 12 matches. Then, he was called up for an international tournament for the first time, the 2005 Confederations Cup, and he was incredible, partnering up with Adriano and creating some of the most memorable moments in the tournament, and even assisting the second goal in the final as Brazil beat Argentina to take home the title. Once August came around, the market was open once again, and there was one offer that was too good to decline. The year was 2005, and Robinho was being given a chance at joining the likes of Ronaldo, Beckham, Zidane, Roberto Carlos, and Raul, as Real Madrid lived out the final few years of the team known as Los Galacticos. The offer was 24 million euros, an incredible amount for such a young player. But after all, he was the next Pelé.
It is interesting that that amount is such a big amount back then, but now it's so crazy, the amount of being paid for top class players.
And surely the word had gotten around to Madrid because Robinho would take the number 10 shirts from the get-go, following players like Figo, Puskás, Laudrup, and Seedorf. The fans expected nothing less than seeing Robinho become the best player in the world. As the season started, his displays began being involved in heavy debate and controversy. Some thought he just needed time, others believed his problems were hardwired into him, and that there was no way of changing him. As much as Robinho proved capable of dominating some matches, he seemed equally likely to completely disappear in others. And Real Madrid was not a team to go on gambling with their team selection like that, especially when all-time greats were always there available to play. As Real finished the season with no trophies, the fans kept on waiting for the player they had been told they were getting. Since a scared young Robinho had walked into the locker room to find Los Galacticos staring back at him, he had been brought up to one day be their replacement. Robinho himself said that for the first year he felt like he was their own child, being taught everything they knew. What more could he have asked for? Over the summer he got to play in his first World Cup, but he would only play the full 90 once, as he would watch Zidane knock out Brazil as he played the last few matches of his career. It was one less Galactico in the squad, and the clock kept ticking. His second season just proved everything people had been saying about him. Throughout most of it, he seemed to have no end profit, with Capello dropping him more and more frequently to the bench. Still, every once in a while he dazzled, winning the Man of the Match award in El Clásico and then scoring 5 goals in 8 matches towards the end of the season, proving to be absolutely key as Real Madrid climbed in the table from being 5 points behind to winning the league on goal difference. As we headed towards the 2007-2008 season, Beckham, Ronaldo and Roberto Carlos would leave. And now it was official that the Galacticos era had ended, and that Robinho had to step up, and considering his performances so far, this would most likely be his last chance. But before the season started, we still had to play for the Copa America, and finally, Robinho was being given a chance as Brazil decided to go into the tournament with what seemed like their B team. The first match seemed like a warning for just how much weaker this squad was, losing 2-0 to Mexico. Someone had to step up, and so Robinho went to work, scoring a hat-trick against Chile and then the only goal against Ecuador to secure both wins. Robinho had scored every one of Brazil's group stage goals. It was incredible. In the quarterfinals, he would score 2 and assist another, despite playing only just over 60 minutes. And despite not getting on the score sheet, more good performances would come against Uruguay and Argentina, as Robinho helped Brazil win the trophy and took home the awards for top scorer and best player in the tournament. After setting a precedent like this, it was time to start the season and prove that Robinho was a legend in the making. Robinho started with 9 matches without a goal contribution, and suddenly, it all fell in place, getting 12 goal contributions in 11 matches, scoring against every Champions League opponent, and dropping 2 incredible performances against Olympiacos and Lazio, totaling 3 goals and 3 assists across the 2 matches. These performances came just before the end of the year and added to the incredible Copa America he had, and his incredible run of good form over the last matches of the previous season. Robinho went into the Ballon d'Or voting with an incredible good year, and despite all the skepticism surrounding him, he would make it to 9th place in the ranking, only behind one other Real Madrid player, Ruud van Nistelrooy. And just as quickly as the fans had regained hope, they lost it again, as Robinho started underperforming, eventually finishing the season with only 1 goal in 10 matches. His performances over the season were a complete roller coaster, up and down and up again. Robinho seemed unable to find consistency, and as much as his great form midway through the season had helped Real retain the title of Spanish champions, there were other players in the squad that were much more suitable for his role. From Robin to Schneider to Van Nistelrooy and Raul, Real had made sure there was enough talent to go around in the post-Galactico era, and so, as Real attempted to use them in a trade offer for Cristiano Ronaldo, going against their promises of renewing his contract, Robinho did not like this one bit and tried to force an exit, eventually getting a deadline day transfer to Manchester City for an impressive 42 million euros. On the same day, the club was bought by Sheikh Mansour. This transfer had been such a last-minute effort that when giving out his first press conference,
I forgot about that. That's the time that suddenly Manchester City becomes such a big club, right? Based on that backing, and that was the the key signing was supposed to be.
Conference, Robinho mistakenly referred to Man City as Chelsea, who were also in the run for his transfer at the time. There are even rumors that it took him a while to realize that he wasn't joining Manchester United, as the player supposedly didn't realize there was another club in Manchester. But honestly, I think that might be a hoax, because it sounds just way too funny to be true. Ironically, his first Premier League match would come against Chelsea, and he would score a spectacular free kick, showing the opposition what he would be missing on. Robinho seemed to have adjusted effortlessly to English football, scoring his first hat-trick a few weeks after and scoring 12 goals before the new year arrived. And just like that, it just happened all over again. 17 games without a goal, awful performances, and some speculating it all came after coach Mark Hughes forbid him from traveling to Brazil at some point. Over the summer, he took part in his second Confederations Cup, and despite being less involved than in the first tournament, Brazil went on to win it once more. The second season would be a complete train wreck. He just couldn't stop watching as his time at Manchester City kept derailing after such an incredible start. First came a 3-month-long injury, and by the time he was back, the team had changed. Tevez and Adebayor arrived, and Robinho was no longer the only celebrity in the squad. To further complicate all of this, Mancini had taken over the squad, and his more rigid approach required a work rate that Robinho just couldn't supply. It all culminated in the most shameful way possible, with Robinho being subbed off right after being subbed in. Mancini had seen enough of him, and so had Robinho seen enough of the Premier League to know it was time to go. A loan move to Santos was set up in January, so Robinho could play for a few months as he looked for a new place to stay in Europe. But this time brought us another epic tale. Robinho joined an incredibly talented and youthful squad with the likes of Neymar, Ganso, Alexandro, and Danilo. What followed were 12 goals in 23 matches, helping Santos to achieve glory once again, winning the Brazilian Cup. This was only the third national trophy won by Santos since the Pelé era, and Robinho had been involved in every single one. I guess, in a way you could say he really was the next Pelé, at least for Santos. These performances ensured Robinho joined Brazil for the 2010 World Cup, where despite him scoring in both knockout stage matches, Brazil would go out in the quarterfinals. Back in Europe, his next move was arranged as Man City tried to make sure they got some of their money back, selling him for 18 million euros to AC Milan. Robinho would once again join a squad with an overflow of talent. As he arrived, David Beckham left, but still there were many others: Ronaldinho, Inzaghi, Pato, Ibrahimovic, Cassano, Pirlo, Gattuso, Seedorf, Thiago Silva, Zambrotta, and Nesta. Oddly enough, it would eventually come out that the signing of Robinho had been at the request of Zlatan himself, and knowing that, it's no wonder the duo worked well together and helped AC Milan win the Serie A for the first time in 7 years, with Robinho contributing for 20 goals in 38 matches in Italy. Unfortunately, once again his second season was completely derailed by injuries, who forced him to miss 11 matches and seriously impacted his performances. By the time this third season started, not only had Zlatan left, but so had every player I mentioned previously, except for Pato. And the ones who took their place, though talented, were far too young and inexperienced to replace the legends who were there before them. I'm talking about players like Balotelli, El Shaarawy, Niang, and Boyan. Mostly all still in their teenage years. With Coach Allegri wanting Robinho to take command and lead the team to glory, injuries and a clear lack of motivation, most likely stemming from feelings of isolation, maybe feeling like he had been left behind, led Robinho to a disastrous season with only 2 goals scored. His last season brought us more of the same, and with AC Milan struggling even further, Robinho would once again decide to jump ship as they finished only 8th in the Serie A table. As had previously happened, Santos seemed like Robinho's safe haven, and once again he defaulted back to his previous team. Unfortunately, this time around there was no revival to be witnessed. Now over 30 years old, Robinho seemed incapable of producing the magic seen in his first 2 stints at the club, and after just a year and a half and 17 goals, he was moving to China, joining Guangzhou Evergrande, who were managed by his ex-coach Luis Felipe Scolari at the time. This move lasted only 6 months, and sometime during it he would be called up for the Copa America, his first call-up for an international tournament since 2011, and his last ever, despite having a goal and an assist in the 163 minutes he played. His next stay would be with Atlético Mineiro in Brazil, scoring 25 goals in 55 matches in his first year, which might not seem like much but would make him the highest goal scorer in the country for that year. And he would even barely miss out on winning the Brazilian Cup once more, being defeated in the final by Grêmio. His second year, in classic Robinho fashion, would be far worse, even going on a shocking run of 22 matches without a goal. Once again, he would be a free agent and a new adventure followed, this time in Turkey. Robinho would join Sivasspor in a transfer that seemed nearly randomly selected. 2 seasons that the club would follow without many highlights at all. So much so that he would even move to another Turkish team, Başakşehir, which seemed much more fitting with players like Adebayor, Dembaba, Clichy, and an actual chance of winning the Turkish Super League. Still, Robinho's performances were far from making headlines, only scoring 4 goals in 2 years, even though the club would actually go on to win the league for the first time in their history. Finally, Robinho signed with Santos, returning home to what seemed like his final move. But that's when things got really crazy. The move was received with immense backlash, and after sponsors began leaving the club in retaliation, Santos were forced to immediately terminate his contract. You see, since 2013, Robinho had been battling sexual assault allegations, and even as all of this happened, he claimed he would focus on proving his innocence. Let's just say that didn't go too well. Robinho has been sentenced to 9 years in prison, and he would be serving it right now if it weren't for the lack of an extradition agreement between Brazil and Italy, where the crime was committed. Trying not to go too much into detail because this really was a horrible crime. Robinho and a group of friends preyed on an Albanian woman who was drunk at a nightclub, performing all kinds of sexual acts on her while she was unconscious. Not only this, but Robinho went on to be exposed for admitting to it all on texts with other men involved. Referring to the acts in a dismissive manner and going on to attempt to shame the victim in court, his behavior shows he completely lacks empathy and the necessary human decency to function in society. It's truly upsetting to see what a man I used to idolize has turned into. I guess in a way, he probably was like this the whole time after the curtains closed and the show was over. So yeah, this was a more negative tone to end the video than usual. I hope it wasn't too upsetting. It's really sad to see this. It's really hard to believe that people you used to idolize are capable of such horrible acts. And yeah, if you did find the video interesting, don't forget to like and consider subscribing, and I'll see you next week. Bye.
Wow. Well, I didn't know much about that later part, but I think in stories like this, be it sportsmen, be it celebrities, right? When someone have a sudden jump from I don't know, is it from zero to suddenly a big shot with big money, with big fame, etc. You know, the transition is one thing, and whether you have the support, you have the surrounding, you have the good environment that will keep you on the ground. Some people some people benefit from having that, but many people they just being surrounded by people that feed off, meaning I'm not sure what to call these people, right? But they flock into those who suddenly become the new rich and famous, and they just want to feed off that, you know, hype them up or whatever, and it just makes the life of that person, if we are talking about human, yeah, you know, it can goes down and down, and because some of them suddenly being put in that situation out of touch with reality of most people, right? And hence, even for us, we see that how can someone be committing such a crime, whatever that crime is, not only this one, right? But when someone is detached too much from reality in such a way, right, suddenly, and from that point onwards, for a long time, they whatever they want, whatever they wish for, etc. People always say yes to them. People always give them. They always get what they want. So yeah. Anyway, interesting. I do not know what else to add. Interesting stories of real people. Yeah. Thank you for watching. See you next time.